Yo, it is time to start rating all of the buddies. Let's take a look at what the best and the worst buddies are in the game and what all of them do, and we're gonna give a little bit of info. Now, it's a lot of buddies. I'll try and go fast. Also, super cool is there's a lot of buddies that haven't been revealed yet, that we only got with these patch notes that no streamers or content creators got to reveal. So you'll still see some new ones in here. Also got some additional info on some of the buddies and heroes. Let's take a look. I'm gonna rate them from 1 to 5. And of course, remember, I'm just a random dude on the internet. All I can do is give my own opinion and try and give my best judgment. I can be wrong and you can have your own opinion, okay? Feel free to leave things down below in the comments if you have different ideas. So starting off with AFK's buddy, Snack Vendor is a neutral 2-star 5-4. So it's your 2, meaning you get it rather early. A 5-4 is actually a really good buddy, no tribes, you're probably not keeping it on your board to scale up. And at the end of your turn, it gives your tier 3 cards +1/+1. So you obviously discover 2 tier 3 cards from hero power. You're just gonna end up buffing them every turn. It's kind of like a super shitty Light Fang. It gives you guaranteed +2/+2 a turn. And, you know, if you plan on keeping it longer, maybe +3/+3, +4/+4 if you fill out your board. So it is okay, but it's not going to be good enough. Use it as tempo, use it early to level, and then once you're into your 4 or 5, you're probably selling this off for some better cards. I do think it is a really good buddy, but my ratings are not just going to be purely based on the buddies, but just on the hero in general. So AFK is not an amazing spot. This buddy, I think, will make her better, but I don't think it will be top tier. I think it will be somewhere around the middle, maybe like playable. So I'm gonna give Snack Vendor only a 2. I don't think it's gonna have a big enough impact to actually make AFK good, and I don't think this card is actually that amazing, honestly. Moving on to Alakir, we got a Spirit of Air, which is a tier 3 elemental, a 6-4. I already talked in depth about this in my reveal video, but in case you missed it, the Death Rattle that gives Divine Shield, Taunt, Wind Fury. It's kinda either a selfless late game, so you can just keep it in hand or play it on a board and just shield something on your board, and the tripled version is gonna be, you know, giving you 2 shields, so it's like a go on selfless if you have big stats or poison or whatever you want to shield. Giving Taunt and Wind Fury doesn't matter a lot unless Wind Fury lands on a Hydra, and Taunt, you could actually accidentally land this on your Baron and then your Baron has Taunt. I mean, kind of awkward. Yeah, Spirit of Air, it is an elemental. You can keep it on your board, scale it up, be part of your menagerie. I've seen people say this is really bad. I've seen people say this is actually insanely good. And I think I'm in the middle ground, so I don't think this is bad at all. I think it is a really good tempo card that stays on your board probably for very long. But I also don't think this is insane and gonna make Alakir one of the best heroes, which I saw some people say that I disagree with. I think this is just gonna be good. I'm gonna give it a 3 probably. Yes, a 3. I can almost pronounce it. Next up is Alexstrasza. Important to note that Alexstrasza's hero power changed a little bit. The odds of getting 6-star dragons is now increased, so you can find Caligos and Almaudon a bit, you know, you're a bit more likely to find them once you level to tier 5. The buddy is a tier 3, 5/3 dragon with a battle cry, so it's a one-time effect that just discovers a dragon from your 7th tier. Now, one thing that a lot of buddies have in common is that they all discover cards. So you can, if you're trying to judge a power level of a card, the best way to do that, I think, is to compare it with other cards. Obviously, you could compare this to existing cards in the game, but the power level of the existing game is gonna change. So comparing it to things right now doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It's better to compare buddies to other buddies, and this, compared to what some other buddies give you in value, doesn't compare at all. You don't care about a random dragon from your 7th tier, because if you're tier 5, it's either a Razorgore or it's a Murozond. So I don't know, this is such low tempo and value and so inconsistent compared to some other heroes. I think Alex is still going to be bad even with the increased odds, especially compared to other heroes. So I'm actually going to give this a 1. I think this buddy is really bad. Now, Arana, this is the first time I also see her buddy. Sklib, a tier 3 5/4, no tribe. After you play a minion, your next refresh goes 0. So it's essentially a recycling wave on tier 4, but you know, now it's just a neutral and it works with every single minion. So you can, you have a constant Nosdormu hero power if you keep playing and cycling cards. Obviously works really well with Party Rock if you play Party Elementals, Molten Rocks, but you could already just find the recycling wave and it's exactly the same effect since you're only selling and buying elementals. You could do more strategies with this now, like Rafvi or Sarlisk. You scale up the beast and the demon while just buying Death Rattle demons on tier 2 and below. That is a solid strategy. Although right now we're not really in a meta where I think that is playable. Everyone plays poison, big scaling stats. Usually as a runner you can't keep up. Therefore, I think this buddy is not going to have a big enough impact. You like free rolls, you see a lot of shops, but this incentivizes you cycling stuff, which incentivizes tempo comps on lower tiers, which is bad right now. I have to give this a 2, sadly. Now, it is a lot of gold. I'll quickly mention that. It is a lot of economy that you get for free, especially if you keep it, but then again, you'll just die, I think. Our farm has the Loyal Henchman, which is a tier 3 6/6 neutral, that after you kill a second minion each combat, get a plain copy of it. So if you already compare this card to what we've seen, this generates you an extra card every single turn. So every turn, instead of getting one card from hero power for free, you get a second card. A free card every turn. Nutty. It is a 6/6 body, which is really good. No tribe, so you can't really put it in your composition or scale it up. But it's a tier 3, so you get it like rather early, about turn 5, I think. I think this is an amazing card. You just play it on the board, you're strong, and with all the tempo and free cards you get, you're gonna level up. Also, stealing from opponents is good, because opponents only buy good cards. Why would your opponents buy bad cards? At least, you know, in higher ranks, your opponents are usually gonna have the same units on board, the same good 1-drops and 2-drops. So it'll be super easy to triple stuff, it'll be super easy to find maybe even direction from this, and just, you know, be strong. I'm gonna give this a 4, not quite a 5, because I don't think it's as game breaking as some other buddies that we have in here, but it's definitely good enough to, you know, be amongst the top buddies and put our farm back into tier 1. Now, a very quick reminder, if you do enjoy this kind of content and guides in general, don't forget to subscribe if you're new to the channel. And I did put a lot of time into this video, so a like would also be very much appreciated. But okay, now moving on to the next one. Then we have Brookekhan, who is a new hero with the 4, you know, elements that you can choose from. Again, if you don't know the new heroes, make sure you saw part 1, which is just a patch review where I go over the new heroes and all the changes. This is purely talking about all of the buddies. So Spirit Raptor is a tier 2, you get it really early. No tribe though, so again, it's hard to fit it in a composition. And it reads after you call upon a new element, it remembers it, therefore it'll call upon those elements. So whenever you use your hero power, it is gonna remember that and store it into this card. So when it dies in combat, it's gonna unleash all of the previous turns of hero powers. Now, when I talked about his hero powers aren't that impactful. They're okay tempo early on. Late game, maybe there's some interactions. If your opponent has Divine Shields, you can clear them. Maybe with Avenge, the Death Rattles are nice. But I don't think you can justify keeping a 3/2 non-tribe card on the board just for the effect that it has, since it's not gonna end up doing a whole lot. Maybe you could stack a whole bunch of attack onto this guy, then this dies, and all of the attack goes onto a massive cleave. That's about the extent of it, I think. I'm still gonna give this a 2. I think it's on the lower end, on the lower power level. I don't think this hero will be amazing, since it doesn't really give you economy or a lot of strength, or most heroes need that right now. Triples economy or strength. Then Khatoon has a Tentacle of Khatoon, which is a tier 2 1/1 without a tribe. After a different friendly minion gain stats, gain +1/+1 until your next turn. So basically, you know, if it's turn 7 and you hero powered on turn 1, you get +7/+7 on your board, and this minion will just get +7/+7, but only for the turn. That's it. This minion stays a 1/1 on your board, and if it's turn 10, this will only be a 10/10. This is really bad. This is not gonna make Khatoon viable at all. I don't see this card ever being good. Now, it does get buffed up with your hero power, so I guess the stats increase along your other cards, but I way rather have another Divine Shield card instead of this. In the late game, another Deflectobot here would be better than a 1/1 Tentacle that maybe gets +12/+12. So essentially like a +13/+13. I'd rather have that 3/2 skill Divine Shield card than that little bit of stats. So I don't think this is good at all. I'm gonna give it a 1 star. I think Khatoon is still really bad, and I think this is gonna make Khatoon even worse. I think this might bait people into keeping it. Then Adora, I also haven't seen this one yet, is a tier 3 5/5 pirate. At the end of your turn, give a random friendly golden minion +5/+5. This is like Gold Grubber on steroids, basically. So Gold Grubber gets +2/+2 if you have a golden. This will give that golden card +5/+5. The issue is, with Adora, your golden that you get is random. You don't necessarily want to keep it always. If it's a selfless, you don't really want to buff a selfless, you know? So this might have some anti-synergies and might not be the best card to have. But it's tempo, and that's something that Adora lacks. Although Adora needs tempo before her dig. Now, after you dig, you probably have this. Although you also gotta remember Adora is weak, so I don't know, it's a tier 3 card. If you don't win your early fights, which is not gonna happen, you might only get it by turn 6 or something, or turn 7 maybe. So by the time you get this, it might already be too late. But whatever random golden you have, you're gonna give it +5/+5 a turn, which is a lot of stats. So just in case you get this in time and you get a good golden, this is amazing. And you could even find more triples, like if you triple a token, if you triple whatever, it's gonna be great. So if you have multiple goldens, I think this is an insane card. It's just a way better Light Fang, if you also have good golden cards that you want to keep. But I feel like people might get baited. It is a pirate, it could stay on the board if you're playing a menagerie or something. I think I'm giving it a 4. I think it is actually deceivingly good. Like +5/+5 is a lot for free every turn, especially if you could get this to give you like +10/+10 or +15/+15 a turn if you find more triples. This might also change Adora's playstyle, because maybe you just want to stay down on 1 and find triples as well. I'm gonna try and pick up speed. I'm making this way too long, but for Hooktusk we have Raging Contender, a tier 2 5/3 neutral. Transfer Treasure offers 3 options, so your hero power 3 options instead of 2. I don't think this is a big deal. I think this makes Hooktusk a bit more consistent, because Hooktusk got nerfed. She used to give 3 options, that was completely broken, but Hooktusk is still a good hero. So Hooktusk is a good hero, making her hero power slightly better to the unnerved version. It's fine. This buddy is probably the worst buddy out of all the buddies that we see, like the lowest impact. But it's still gonna make Hooktusk good, and Hooktusk will always be a good hero currently, as long as tokens are in the game and you want to find triples. I have to give this a 4, because I think this will see a lot of play. It's not something you keep on the board, it's something you find early on, since it's tier 2. You will be strong, you have this early, and you will get so many triples and tempo of this. I think it's gonna be ridiculous, but yeah, it has such a low impact buddy compared to what others are giving you, like free cards, free money. This is just like 3 options instead of 2. Now Cariel, one of the worst heroes in the game, got Captain Fairmount, which is a tier 3 7/5 neutral. At the end of your turn, give 3 random friendly minions +1/+1. So I mean, the first thing that pops to mind is the AFK buddy, which gives +1/+1 to some 3 drops. This is kind of dead, but instead of 3 drops to just any random cards, but it's a tier 3 card, so you get it later than AFK's card. It's also random. It could buff cards that you want to sell. AFK buffs 3 drops, which very often are your good cards. It has a really good body, a 7/5, but I mean, Cariel's hero power is still so trash. This never stays on your board for too long. I'm sorry. I'm gonna give it a 2. I don't think it's a 1 quite. Like, I think at 7/5, that still gives +3/+3 a turn, isn't horrible. But I mean, it's just not nearly good enough, and especially if your hero power is Cariel's hero power, you're not gonna have an impact on the game, I think. Shenvala, I also haven't seen this one, has now a tier 2 4/3 snow elemental. It's an elemental, so again, elementals have a bunch of synergies, Major Domo, Lil Rag, whatever. Bob always offers an extra frozen elemental whenever the tavern is refreshed. Interesting that they choose to have it frozen. I guess you have to unfreeze it every single time if you don't want to keep it at the end of your turn. But so every time you roll, you get an elemental. It's like HysteriA, but with elementals. Holy shit, that's actually really good. This is actually nuts, right? You just get to farm so many triples. It is literally HysteriA, but for elementals. Plus, elementals synergize really well with your hero power. You will be able to power level straight to 6. Okay, I think Shenvala might actually be good. It's tier 2 as well. You get it super early. It's an elemental itself, so it's gonna count towards your hero power. I'm gonna give this a 5. I think this is the first time I see it, but thinking about all the possibilities, how much tempo, triples, I think Shenvala is just gonna snowball straight to 6 and get, you know, as many little rags as they want. Cookie the Cook has Sous Chef, also one that I covered in depth in my reveal video. Tier 2 2/5 Murloc. It gives you an extra hero power every turn. It is a Murloc, you can keep it if you poison it, or if you need a Murloc in your board. It's tier 2, so you get it rather early, so you start getting that hero power value. Now there's a lot of cards that discover 1 card a turn. This only gives you like 1 extra card over 3 turns, which isn't amazing, but you know, knowing that you can kind of choose what tribes you pick, it's kind of hard. I don't know how to feel about this, because compared to some other cards, it just discovers you less, but it is early on, and it is a 2/5 Murloc. Now the golden version does, you know, allow you to hero power 3 times turn, so every turn you discover, which is pretty good if you can keep this. Also, APM is going to be an issue. You'll have to find 3 things to eat every single turn and discover, so you might run out of time. You have to roll a lot of shops. I actually think this one is pretty overrated. I'm going to give it only 3 points. I don't think it's ever gonna be like broken as people make it out to seem. I just don't see it having that big of an impact. Dancing Doll, mainly a top 3 tempo hero, now got even more tempo for top 3. Their buddy is a 3-star 3/3 neutral, so no tribe. Asher the Haberdasher. After you sell a minion, game +1/+1, so if you dance, this is gonna scale up with your board. I compared this to Crowd Favorite, but better. Like, Crowd Favorite used to be a 4/4 card on tier 3. Whenever you play a Battle Cry, it's gonna gain +1/+1. So whenever you sell anything now, this just gets +1/+1. So it's just gonna be a pretty big body that you can keep on the board, which, you know, is good. It's gonna win some fights, but in the late game, just, you know, gets run over by high roll builds, by Divine Shields, by Poison. So I think it's good. It's gonna make Daryl just good at what it is good already. putting tempo on the board. I'm gonna give this a 3. It's pretty like, okay. Blackthorne gets a tier 3, 3/6 quill board. After you gain a blood gem, gain an extra one. So you double your stats essentially. If you level, you get 4 gems instead of 2. It is tier 3, so you don't get it super early on, so you're losing out on some potential value. But the issue is that you have to force quillboards now. Like, this is a really bad card if you don't have quillboards on the board. So quillboards are also not in a good spot right now. You rather prefer playing different tribes. So having to try and force quillboards, not the most consistent. Also late game, not the greatest. But I think this is really good tempo though. Imagine if you have a Pumbaa. Imagine Pumbaa is tier 5 board. I call it Pumbaa. If you do have the quillboard synergies, you have so much stats. It's incredible. If you are a Shaker comp, like with Flat Tusk Agam, that will be nutty. Imagine Flat Tusk Agam, you have this on the board. Damn. The issue though is hand space. Usually already you have a full hand at the start of your turn. If you play Bonkers, Gem Splitter, the cards that just generate you gems, usually you start your turn with a full hand. Then you get 0 value. This thing does nothing. So that is one issue. If you play like a Shaker Gem Splitter comp, you probably don't even want to keep this. But I think mid game it could be okay tempo if you are playing, like, let's say you're playing with Bonker and Dynamic Duo only, so you get just extra value that way, extra stats on your Bonker and Duo, or again the Agam Flat Tusk stuff. I feel like this card is a little bit awkward though. It's gonna put you in a lot of weird situations. I'm gonna give it a 2. I thought at first this was gonna be an amazing card, but the more I think about it, the more I think this is just like early, decent tempo, and it's gonna probably bait you into playing quillboards too much and losing the game. So I don't think this will make Blackthorne like an amazing hero. That thing gets a tier 3, 3/8 neutral. Lady Sinestra, your minions have +3 attack. That's kind of bad. I'm just gonna give it a 1 point already. I don't see it ever, being good. So the issue is that if you want attack on your cards, you just play 1 or 2 leapers if you have a mech board. Ta-da, there's your attack. Now, where this shines, I guess, is with like Death Rattle stuff, with Red Packs or with Menaces. Those cards will also get plus attack, but you have to keep a 3/8 on the board. And right now, you used to be able to play scam comps with death thing like that, just a bunch of Death Rattle stuff, and usually that is like good enough to beat your opponent. But there's so much scaling right now. Things got so out-tuned. You need your triples, economy, high roll scaling. This provides nothing. And it's tier 3. Yeah, no, I don't see this card being amazing, and I don't see it making that thing better. The only thing this card will achieve is maybe you're a little bit stronger early on because you have like some cool Death Rattle synergies, but it's never something you build your comp around late game. Now Bran gets Bran's Epic Egg, a tier 2 0/3 taunt, 0/3 taunt, yes. Death Rattle, summon a random Battlecry minion and add a copy of it to your hand. So I compare this to Witchwing. Witchwing can give you multiple Battlecries a turn. It's a tier 4 though, but this is a 0/3. You can't interact with this. It has no tribe unless you find Scavenger to buff it up. It's tier 2. You find it early, so this will just give you a Battlecry every single turn, but it's not something you want to keep. You don't just want a 0/3 on your board to give you 1 card a turn. Sure, Battlecries can have synergy with Bran, but it can also be complete trash. It can be a 1-drop or something. So you might just end up taking too much damage for this. Like, I had a game today where I just found a Witchwing on Bran, which gave me 3 Battlecries a turn. That would already be 3 turns of just having an egg, but I didn't have to play a 0/3. It is a good card. A lot of people are saying this is one of the best buddies. This is completely broken. Again, I think people are just over-exaggerating. I think this is just a good card. Nothing more than that. I'm still gonna give it a 4. I still think it is good with Bran, but I don't think it is gonna make Bran suddenly like this top tier hero that it has never been before. It's just gonna keep Bran good. Then we got Draktar, one of the new heroes. They got Frostwolf Lieutenant. I don't know how to pronounce that. It's a tier 3/7 for a neutral. Avenge 2. Give your minions +1 attack permanently. So this hero gives you, you can swap attack from one card onto another. But this is just Avenge 2, and it gives permanent attack scaling. So, dude, okay. Avenge, as we all know, can snowball incredibly quickly if you have some Death Rattle taunts or just a bunch of tokens. Now, imagine if you have like some Deflectobots or a Hydra or some early pub bots, and you get, let's say, Avenge twice triggers like 3 times a turn, maybe 4 times. 3 or 4 attack a turn for free onto your entire board is massive, but it's mainly tempo. Like, if it's well into tempo Divine Shield comps, you need a very specific setup. That is it. It is a 7/4, so it's a good stat. You can keep it for a little bit. No tribe, so it's hard to fit permanently on your board. But if you compare this to Arm of Empire, you need like taunted cards. You would have to like try and taunt your Divine Shields and stuff like that. You can get multiple hits into it, so it scales up really well. I don't know. I feel like this card is pretty good, but probably not gonna win you the game. I'm just gonna give it a 3. I was overhyping it at first. I think it is good, but just like compared to all of the other madness that we're getting, Avenge 2 give +1 attack permanently isn't even that insane, which is the crazy part. But then moving on to Edwin, he gets an SI7 Scout, a neutral tier 3 free. One day I'll be able to pronounce it. After you buy a minion, gain +1/+1. So with Edwin, you're incentivized to cycle a lot of cards, so that way your hero power gives you a lot of buffs. So whenever you buy a card, gain +1/+1. Compare this to Dancing Daryl, it's a little bit worse, because with Daryl, you like dancing. On Edwin, you know, it's not even that good to cycle a lot of cards just to hero power. You fall behind, you still have nothing, and you die. This with APM Pirates is interesting, but even then, it's just going to be a stat pile, this card, and it's not even going to be that much stats. Even if you compare this to, again, Crowd Favorite or something, that's whenever you buy a Battle Cry, it gains +1/+1. If you compare this to Salty Looter, every pirate you buy gains +1/+1. Here's where every minion you buy, but again, it's a neutral, and you don't necessarily just want to buy random cards. Hey, it's not even that good of a tempo minion, I'm not gonna lie. Like, Champion is better. If you have Champion of Yashirash, you don't have to do anything and it scales up like a little bit a turn if you just have a couple talents without gold investment. I'm gonna give this a 1. Edwin, I'm sorry that they did you dirty. You're already not a great hero, but now this buddy is, you know, gonna make it a little bit worse even. Elise Starseeker gets Junior Navigator, tier 3, 4, 5 neutral, so pretty decent stat line. Tier 3 means you don't get it super early though. At the start of your turn, get a recruitment map and reduce the cost of maps in your hand by 1. So you get a map, if you keep it in hand for 3 turns, it will cost 0 gold. So if you have this on the board and you wait 3 turns, and every turn you basically can do a free discover. So it's another card that gives you a free discover. Issue is that you would have to wait 3 turns in order to get them for free, which is a whole lot, because usually in 3 turns you'll have leveled up to higher tiers and your maps will be from lower tiers. So I mean, I don't know, maps aren't amazing. You have to spend a lot of gold. Like, if you level and then wait with your map to reduce it once and then you can open it for 2 gold, sure, I think it's like okay, but I think you can't keep this for long anyway. You can't get that much reduction value, because the longer you wait with your maps, the later you spike, and the longer that you have to keep a 4/5 neutral on the board. I'm gonna give this a 2. I almost want to give it a 1, but I think maybe there's some lines where you can power level to tier 6, then just open a couple 6 maps and 5 maps and spike that way. But that's like really best case scenario, especially with tier 5 being more expensive now to enter. And then we got Omu, who got an insane card, tier 4 neutral, 7/6. At the end of your turn, add a random minion of your 7th tier to your hand. Why do we have Elise's buddy if we have this? Like, Elise is just a worse version compared to this. So with Omu, you obviously power level, and this is a tier 4 card, meaning you find it rather late. So that means you find this when you're on higher tiers already, and then at the end of your turn it gives you a random minion from that tier. Just go to tier 5 or 6 and keep getting those 5s and 6s. Like, it's absolutely insane, especially since it's a 7/6. It trades well, it's a good body. No tribe again, you can't really keep it on your board for too long, I think, but this is just going to give you a Caligos and you're happy, or it just gives you a Hogger and time to transition. One thing I've noticed with a lot of these buddies is they either do 2 things. Either 1, they generate you cards every turn, or 2, they generate you stats once or every turn. And that is how I'm judging these cards, based on like how many stats does every card give on average, or how good are the cards that they get a turn. Compared to Elise, Elise has discovers, but they're more expensive. This is random, but I mean, this works really well with your hero power since you're higher tiers anyway. And looking at the stat line, like, I think this is just nuts. I'm gonna give this a 5. I think this is gonna be spicy. And Fleurgal, I also got to reveal this one, which I'm really happy about, is Sparkfin Soothsayer that they get a tier 4 7/5 Murloc. Battlecry, transform the minions in Bob's Tavern into Murlocs of the same Tavern tier. Again, if you only have 4 jobs, they give you guaranteed lookouts. On tier 5, it's guaranteed Sefin or Begurgle, which is great. And on tier 6, it's some Mulliganons. So, I mean, if you can guarantee Mulliganons, that's amazing. Now, I have not been talking too much about the golden cards of these buddies, because usually you can kind of guess what they do. It's just double the effect, right? This one isn't double the effect. This one is, you know, it discovers Murlocs from a higher Tavern tier, which is pretty good, because all the tier 5s in your shop then are also going to transform into a Mulliganon. So if you have 5s and 6s in your shop, play this, get all the Amalgadons, and you're good. Now, Fleurgal is a pretty consistent hero, to me at least. Giving him tools like this probably is okay. I don't think it's gonna have a massive impact. It's tier 4, you find it rather late, which is okay, because yeah, you can then go for the greedy lines with the 4 drops and the 5 drops. I'm gonna give this a 3. The Amalgadon line seems really good and really tempting, but usually you don't go to 6 too early on Fleurgal or you die. But the golden version might just get you some Amalgadons on the board finally, so you can move from Murlocs very cleanly into a menagerie. Galacron got the Apostle of Galacron, which is a tier 3 5/7 neutral, 5-7 is some pretty good stats. Battlecry, you replace minions in your Bob's Tavern with ones of a higher Tavern tier. This was the old Lich, what was her name? I forgot. We had a hero that every time you level, you upgrade the cards in your Tavern 1 tier. It's not really that good, because if you're on tier 4, let's say, you might have like 1 or 2 4-drops in your shop. It's really unlikely that you have like 4 4-drops in your shop. That's like rare case. So you'll only get like 1 or 2 random 5s. So it's not that amazing. Again, you could hero power first, then play this to discover something from a higher tier right away. But I don't see this being a massive spike, honestly. I'm just gonna give this a 2. I think Galacron is a decent hero, will be still a good hero, but I don't think this card is gonna add much to him. I think he's not gonna be like, wow, suddenly I got a bunch of 6-drops in my shop and like double Kalagos. This card is not gonna do that. Gilwing got a Flight Trainer at tier 2, so you get a really early 4/5 neutral. At the end of your turn, progress your flight path by 1 turn. Kind of the same like Cookie. Most of the time you take the middle option on Gilwing anyway, which is the Discover. So you will again get an extra Discover in like 3 turns. So you get to discover 2 cards in 3 turns. Golden version, you discover a card every single turn. Of your Tavern tier, which is really good. Like that's the difference with Cookie, I guess. That's not guaranteed of your Tavern tier, only of the tribes that you chose. So just the fact that you get it really early makes it kind of good. But compared to Omu's card that discovers from your Tavern tier every single turn, this is obviously a bit worse. Although Omu is random, it's not Discover. I should keep that in mind. Yeah, I think this is slightly better than Cookie's option, because you don't have to be worried about eating every turn and finding cards to eat, and it's guaranteed of your Tavern tier. So if you level, you know you're gonna get higher tier cards. I think I'm giving this a 3. I think it's just gonna be alright. It's gonna be a decent card. That's it. It doesn't make Gilwing OP or anything. Now George, I also haven't seen this one. A tier 3 7/4 neutral. Crawl the Lost. After you use your hero power, give your Divine Shield minions +2 attack. So if you use this the first time, you just get +2 attack. The thing is, you don't want to hero power much anymore in the late game. You would have to spend 2 gold to just get like +2 attack on 5 cards. And if you have a full board of Divine Shields, you don't need to use your hero power anymore. So this card just does nothing later on. Literally nothing. And you still kind of lose the goal. Like plus attack onto your Divine Shields is tempo, but you don't want to like keep it. This card I think is okay. If you discover it as a 7/4 neutral, just slap it on the board. When you hero power, you get a little bit of extra value, but it's not going to be a composition that you build or not a way that you scale up your board. It's just a good tempo tool to get you through the mid game. That's about it. So I think I'm just giving it a 3. It doesn't make George a whole lot better. It's also not nothing. It doesn't just completely ruin George. I think it's just a decent card that you slap on the board, or you know, those additional stats maybe. But I think people are gonna get way too baited by this. Okay, so this video is already way longer than I expected. Dude, talking about these buddies takes a lot of time, so I'm gonna do this in 3 parts. This was part 1. I'll try and get part 2 and 3 out tomorrow. Hope you enjoyed this though. Let me know again what you thought down below, and let's just review some more buddies soon. Have a good day.